So you just land your first big tech job, and you're finally working at a job that uses your computer science degrees for good and helps you make a lot of money with that 160 total comp base, going up to maybe even 400, 300K total comp as a new grad. And you're feeling good about yourself. You're paying back your student loans if you have them. You're making money. You're getting situated in a new city or you're remote. But one thing is really striking when you start. It's really intimidating. There's a lot of new tools, a lot of internal tools that you don't know about. You have to learn a new programming language. You have to learn how software engineers in a corporate setting or a larger team have to work together in order to get things done. And there's a bunch of different terms like sprint planning, retro, all these things that you've never learned about in school. So now that you're a new grad, you don't want to lose that. How do you be the best new grad that you can be and stick it out and have a flourishing and lucrative software engineering career? That's what I'm going to go over in this video. The first thing you should do is always just spend your full onboarding time actually onboarding. Learn really in depth about the tools and the way that people work inside of your organization. At my other two companies, my first big tech company as a new grad, I had a 6-month onboarding time, and there was a checklist of things that I needed to do and tools that I needed to learn. I spent those 6 months just really learning about those tools and how to use them, learning how to work in the environment that I was in, and learning how to interface with my team. My second job, I also worked at a big tech company, and I had a 3-month onboarding period where I had to learn all the tools, go to a boot camp, and get used to working in that environment. Use that onboarding time really wisely because that's the slowest your job is going to be during the entire duration of your time there. Really get to know it because when you get to know the tooling well, they're meant to help you and you'll hit the ground running and really kill it because you'll know how to work optimally in that environment where if you're trying to figure out the tooling on the job, it becomes really hard. An example of this was when I worked at my first big tech job and I had to figure out how to use their IDE. I didn't really know how to sync their IDE to their remote repositories, and I spent a lot of time figuring that out. I would have to delete their repositories and then re-download them, and every time I had to do that, that was wasting a day where I could have been using that developing. If I spent a little bit more time figuring out how to use those tools properly, I could have saved a lot of time and got a lot more work done, which made me seem like a more valuable or a better new grad software engineer since I was learning and getting things done really quickly. So that is like an example of using your onboarding time really wisely. The more you learn during onboarding, the faster you'll be able to go later. You can't run until you learn how to walk, as the saying goes. The next thing, definitely pick up the tasks that are hard to do. As a new grad, you're not expected to know everything. You're expected to pick up the harder tasks or the things that most people don't want to do. It's a cold, hard truth of life that there is some sort of tenure and there's good things that come with tenure. The longer you've been on a team, the more time you've had proposing new projects and the more time you've had advocating for yourself to work on those projects that seem cool. It's hard to join a team and then just get the coolest projects. You have to work your way up. And the easiest way to work your way up is proving that you're reliable and proving that you get things done on time. And by doing that, you start getting those projects. But the only way to build that trust with your teammates is by doing the things that they don't want to do or doing the hard things. I remember one of my first tasks in my first software engineering job was to completely change our error handling on one of our huge microservices. And it was a grueling task. I spent maybe 3 weeks on it and I made a lot of mistakes. But during that, I started learning about working on a bigger team, learning the entire code base, and working with a couple of my teammates and building relationships with them. Those relationships helped me get future projects when I proved that I was reliable. And when they had to make a decision on who they wanted working on a task, they picked me. And those projects helped get me bigger projects. And eventually I worked my way up to leading my own project. That would have been impossible if I just jumped in and was really upset that I didn't get the project that I wanted and I didn't do anything. That probably would have gotten me fired. So definitely pick up the things that are given to you or pick up the harder projects that nobody else wants to do because that's how you build that trust in your team. My next point is focus on solving problems, not just doing work. Examples of these problems could be like scaling issues or big migrations or getting data to drive a decision. A lot of this is like quote unquote grunt work, but these projects will help you build trust, as I mentioned before. That trust with your teammates is so important. And also it shows that you are an engineer that's capable of doing things that nobody else wants to do and people can rely on you. I feel like this is just such an important thing to know, that you just need to build that trust with your team, because nobody wants to give a project to somebody who they're not sure if they can deliver on time, especially if their ass is on the line. If your manager could get fired for a project, of course she's going to give it, or he's going to give it to the person who will be able to get the job done and make sure that they're safe. So you want to become that person, and working on those hard projects are a good way to do it. At my first big tech job, some of the problems that I picked up because nobody else wanted to do it was working on a scaling initiative to scale our microservice to the size it is today, 250 million requests, and also taking on a really big migration project that was challenging, that we migrated our entire data model to a new data model that allowed for more expandability. That migration was difficult, and I worked with a senior member of the team, and he actually advocated for me because I was working on this hard project and I was doing a good job. That led me to lead the remainder of the project as a new grad software engineer. So those projects are the ones that will get you recognized and help you advance yourself in your career. My next point is to pick your battles. This is very simple. You should always focus on the battles you want to fight, and some things are just above your pay grade and you should let it go. Some golden rules of this is do not fight with your tech lead unless you have a very, very, very strong hypothesis, and never call them out on an open meeting. This is just very straightforward office politics. If you have a problem with something that a person with more tenure has done, or something that doesn't seem right, talk to them behind closed doors and bring it up to them in the form of a question. And ask more questions to the people that are more senior on the team. Those are the people that ended up building the system that you're working on, or have worked on the system and might know more problems with it than you might have. And you want to ask questions to learn, but also those questions can unveil something that was wrong in the design. For example, one time I argued with one of the more senior members of my team, and that ended up getting me removed from a project and moved to a different side of the team because that person didn't really want to work with me that much anymore. Those fights are not really that meaningful, and eventually after that, like looking back, there was no reason to fight. It was just a small misunderstanding. So my point in all this is don't pick a fight with the people that have more tenure, and make sure you pick your battles wisely. You don't want to be the person who's disagreeable because nobody wants to work with you. When you really feel like you're right in something, bring it up behind closed doors and talk to them privately about it. The next thing that I want to talk about is make sure the team and project that you're working on invigorates you and doesn't drain you. It's so important having the right project fit, because it's really hard to focus on something if it isn't something you're passionate about. My first project at my first big tech job, I worked on a project that I wasn't very passionate about. And because of that, my work just really slipped. I was working the bare minimum and I wasn't going above and beyond to really grow as a software engineer. And because of that, my performance was declining and people didn't really want to work with me that much. And then when I moved over to a project that really made me passionate, I really showed off my skills, and people that really thought that I was slacking or I wasn't that talented started seeing the things that I could do, and that led me to getting a huge raise and led me to being put up for promotion. Those things, that passion is something that's really hard to reproduce, and you don't want to work on a project that doesn't bring you joy and make you want to go to work. So something that might be passionate to you, if you're working on payments, join a payments team. If you like working on maps, join a maps team. If you like working on media, join a content team. All those teams exist at those big companies, and you want to find the right fit for you. Your manager might even help you do that, because it doesn't help them if you want to quit the entire time, because they have to motivate you and they have to manage you. So it works for everybody when you move to a team that really is one of your passions and invigorates you. My last point is coding is a commodity and you should become an expert in something. This is something I learned when I was onboarding to my second big tech job. It's really hard to get ahead in a company just by coding as a software engineer. There are millions of coders in the world, and a lot of them are pretty good. But what separates somebody who is a high level at these tech companies versus somebody whose entry is, yes, their ability to code, but they're also an expert in something. They might be an expert in their domain of choice. They might be an expert in a certain technology. They might be an expert in a specific project, but all of them are experts and they really, really specialize in something, and that brings their level higher. Those people become harder to replace, and those people become more valuable to the company because of that. So please just choose something to specialize in, whether it's monitoring, whether it's configurations, whether it's low latency code, whether it's databases, whether it's networking. All of those are great specializations and really brings your value as a software engineer up. And that will get you promoted, that will keep you retained, and that will make sure it shows your employer that you're valuable and that they should keep you employed and have you stick around. So if you like this video, make sure you like and subscribe for more. And I am also offering resume review sessions in the link below. It's $40 for 20 minutes. Thank you for watching, and peace out, guys.